Hello, and welcome to the instructional video for the Ethnocentrism and Cultural Relativism debate and paper. So if you're watching this video, that means that you missed the debate. So I'm sorry about that. However, since you still have to do the paper, and I will assume that you have done the reading still, this is just to kind of give you the information that you should have learned from the debate event. So real quick moment, I'm going to share the definitions with you. Okay, so when the British colonists called the Native Americans savages, do you know what that's called? And when people don't judge other countries or cultures for their differences, do you know what that's called? Who we are and how we form our opinions on others can often be defined as one of two things: ethnocentrism or cultural relativism. You may be ethnocentrist in one way and a cultural relativist in another. It's not an all encompassing, defining thing. One is not necessarily better than the other. There is a sort of spectrum to each of these two different viewpoints. So, the definition for being ethnocentric is evaluation of other cultures according to preconceptions originating in the standards and customs of one's own culture. So if you were to judge a foreign culture for their behaviors or practices, based on what your preconceptions are, based on your culture's customs and standards, then you would be being ethnocentric. Okay, so there's lots of different examples of this. People often consider ethnocentric to be bad because it's being judgmental of foreign cultures. However, there are times when being ethnocentric is actually appropriate. So let's talk about cultural relativism now. Cultural relativism, it refers to not judging a culture to our own standards of what is right or wrong, strange or normal. Instead, we should try to understand the cultural practices of those other groups in their own cultural I got mixed up right there. Instead, we should try to understand the cultural practices of other groups in their own cultural context. So what that means is we should sort of try to understand foreign cultures and not necessarily judge them. I have two other definitions here, which have to do with topics that are below in the topics for the debate. One of them is female genital mutilation. This is a really this particular practice is something that an ethnocentric person would consider barbaric and violent and disgusting. This is a moment where ethnocentric people are typically correct, because as far as we can tell, it really is a violent and harmful procedure. The definition is a procedure commonly used in Africa, in a couple Middle Eastern countries, and in a couple Asian countries. The clitoris is surgically removed. So if you follow the link to the lesson plan and you go to the female genital mutilation, is this barbaric? There is a list of the countries that still do it, as well as why they do it. And if you click on the why do they do it, you'll find that it has a lot to do with controlling female sexuality. As far as the why are we talking about that in a class that's for teenagers? And the answer is because they literally do this to children that are ages from 0 to 14 and sometimes older. So this is something that children a similar age as some of you may have had done to them in a foreign country. There's also TED Talks about this. And when it says, is this barbaric? The answer really is yes, it is a barbaric practice. There is nothing to gain from that. There is no, it's like how the Food and Drug Administration classifies some different drugs as being narcotics at different levels, because if something literally has no good purpose to doing it, then it's considered bad. And that is the case of this. Now, a person that is a cultural relativist would be like, oh, that's just a different country. That's just their practices. It's just the way they do things there. And they would argue that it's an acceptable practice because it's really not up to us. It's not our culture. It's something we just shouldn't really care about because, that doesn't really, there's nothing for us to gain from judging an outside culture. The age of consent. This is the age in which a person can legally consent to sexual interaction. So why is that definition there? It's because we talk about Japan's age of consent. It was 13, but it changed to 16 in 2023. That is this year. What does this tell us about Japan as a whole? Are they perverts for having this law? So essentially in Japan, sex work is legal as well, like prostitution, things like that. So they were allowing 13-year-olds to be prostitutes. And I personally feel that this is an ethnocentric feeling. Not that they are perverts, but that law is disgusting, and it is designed to allow people to sexualize children. And yeah, they changed it from 13 to 16, but I wouldn't call that fixing it. I would say that that's making it slightly less bad. But yeah, this is a point where ethnocentrism could be considered to be correct, to be the correct point of view, right? The same with the female genital mutilation, right? Yes, you are evaluating people off your own culture, but really what you're doing is seeing something that's inhumane and determining that it is inhumane. So let's talk about some times where cultural relativism could be correct. Babies being left outside in the cold in Sweden. Is this abusive? There's a link here talking about why in Sweden they leave their children out in the cold. And basically it has to do with sicknesses spreading during the colder months of the year. And don't get me wrong, they do leave them outside in a stroller. And these particular strollers are designed to be very heavily insulated. But what they do is when the kids need to nap, they put them outside and they line up all the strollers. And I will just click this to show a picture of it. Sub-zero temperatures. So yeah, the babies who nap in sub-zero temperatures. So like there is an argument that by doing this, they are literally leaving their babies outside in the cold, and that is abusive because children shouldn't be exposed to such harsh conditions. The fact is the children are protected from the harsh conditions. There's also people that say, well, what if they steal the babies? Well, that doesn't really happen in Sweden. So judging their safety of their, practices doesn't really work. We can't really be ethnocentric in this situation because there's actually positive health reasons for why they do this. It's not unhealthy for the children and it's not dangerous. If it is healthy or dangerous, statistically speaking, it's too small of a factor for it to count, right? If something did happen, it would be considered an outlier, which means it's no good for statistics. All right, here's this other one. So this last thing right here, which is what do you think of the Philippines? Drug war, smoking laws, divorce is illegal, threats to journalists, LGBTQ plus norms. All of the source for this is from the book, The Patron Saints of Nothing. So if you've not read the book, then you cannot argue any of these points. In the book, all of these different things happen. In the drug war, they basically can kill you for smoking weed or using any other drug. Someone can say that you use marijuana, get your name on a list, and then a bounty will be put on you, and then they could kill you. So someone could just say that you smoke weed and then legally kill you and then get money for killing you. So that is absolutely brutal. The smoking laws is, if you do smoke tobacco, there it is legal, but you have to smoke inside. Now that's a bad law because smoking inside is much more unhealthy for you than smoking outside. So this smoking law, although it makes it to where smoking is a private thing where people can't really see it, that is very bad for your health. Divorce is illegal in the Philippines. So in some ways, a person that is not necessarily an ethnocentrist, but if they could be ethnocentric by saying that this is a good law because they might believe that the sanctity of marriage is like you agree to be with that person forever. And so the ethnocentric person could take that opinion. The cultural relativist would be like, oh, well, that's a different country. The fact that divorce is illegal has nothing to do with anything. An ethnocentrist might also say that divorce being illegal is inhumane because neither a man nor a woman can escape that. It's a life binding contract that there is no getting out of. Threats to journalists in the Philippines, if you cover material that is considered to be against the government, they can kill you. This is almost as bad as a World War II Germany Gestapo situation. So yeah, the honest journalism is being stifled there. An ethnocentrist would definitely say that that is bad. A cultural relativist would have a hard time arguing that letting journalists be killed is easy, or is okay, but they could say that. For LGBTQ plus norms in the book, there is a harsh judgment against people of this community. The Philippines is primarily a religious Catholic country. And so there is a very harsh treatment for people that do follow these norms. In the book, there are two different couples. Out of all the characters in the story, there are two different couples that are in the LGBTQ plus community. So anyways, if you missed the debate, that's sad, but you need to understand this information for writing the paper, which comes after. Now, the paper is really just you talk about different events in the book, and when you talk about those events, you basically say, I am expressing an ethnocentric opinion or a cultural relativist opinion, whatever one you pick for your paper, and then you write the situations and you give your own opinion on how you feel about each of the situations that you have listed. You were supposed to have written down situations to cite for your paper. And there will also be a document that I share that is both the situations that I've listed and any other situations that you as students have found. So if there's anything I missed or anything in particular that could be used, that is something that will appear later. But these are some of the topics that I myself found in there. Anyways, with this information, just know that you can always click on the lesson plan for this. When you click on the lesson plan for this, it does have links to everything, including the Kahoot that you missed out on. So if you want to take this small quiz, the Kahoot, and if you want to talk about these topics, just reach out to me and I'll give you partial credit. But you have to discuss each of these things, and I will give you points for each of the topics that you discuss as a way of you making up the points. For that, I will have you choose ethnocentric or cultural relativist, as that debate structure was supposed to be designed like that. And I will argue against whatever you pick if needed. Or if there's a bunch of other students that have the same issue, we can schedule a time and you guys can come in and argue with each other. That's fine with me. it's just important to me that you understand exactly what these lenses are, because this is a lens. These both of these lenses are something that you can use later on in your career to sort of argue the validity and the reason for people adopting certain stances on things. I have heard people say things before like America's the greatest country in the world, or America's a bad country because we don't have blank. So there are times where people are very ethnocentric when talking about the United States. And then there are other times when um, people are kind of cultural relativists about the United States and argue that, we simply are, that is just the way it is here. And cultural relativism doesn't necessarily have to be an entire country, but it can be a like a culture, So people in California could judge people in Alabama for their abortion laws or things like that. So that's all something to consider. How our cultures interact with each other and sort of like the way our values mix. Um, Anyways, I feel that's sufficient for this video. So I appreciate you taking the time to come in here and make up your missed assignment. Any other questions, please feel free to reach out to me, and I will try to get back to you as soon as possible with as clear an answer as possible. Have a great day or good night or whatever time it is that you're watching this. And yeah, I'll see you again soon.